some of this is where, like, to me, the true definition of agentic commerce is full automation, right? And the couple use cases which we see, one is inventory replenishment, right? And in stores, your agent, your replenishment agent should just do the job. It knows the inventory levels, it knows the order volume, it knows the historical trend analysis. It should just place the replenishment order for you every Friday or every Sunday night. Like, it should be just fully automated. Like, you need very little human intervention. So that's an example of a truly agentic system.
Welcome to the Retailgentic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new Agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkouts? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scot Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Retailgentic. Today we have Nitin Mangtani, SVP and GM of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. I've had the pleasure of working with Nitin and knowing him for over 15 years. We met when he was the group product manager for Google Shopping, also known for you old-timers, Froogle, if you remember that, your e-commerce history. Well, he left Google, started a startup called PredictSpring, did some pivoting and some other interesting things we'll learn more about, and then that company was acquired by Salesforce in 2024. He quickly rose through the ranks as part of that acquisition, and boop, now he is running, via being the SVP and general manager, all of their various e-commerce initiatives, which are under the umbrella Agentforce Commerce Cloud. In this interview, we'll go through his career in detail, his startup adventures at PredictSpring, and then we get into some really great updates around what Salesforce is doing, their renewed focus and energy coming from Agentic AI, and a little Marc Benioff in there. And then we'll dig into how all this relates to e-commerce, what Nitin's big plans are for Agentforce Commerce, what they're doing with ChatGPT, instant checkout, and all of those things. So it's going to be fun to see where Nitin takes this. I think they've got a great leader there. I'm a huge Nitin fan, if you haven't already picked up on that. And at the end, we talk a little bit about where he sees all this going. So I really enjoyed this interview with Nitin. Without further delay, here is my interview with Nitin, the SVP and General Manager of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Nitin, welcome to the Retailgentic podcast.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
You and I have known, I was trying to figure this out. Is it 07? Somewhere in that era.
I think it was awesome. I was thinking when I was coming here, I was like, I think it was 2007.
All right, we'll round up and we'll say 20 years. So we've known each other for a while. And, you know, you've had a really fun career in e-commerce. We've had different careers in e-commerce, but they always kind of like intersect each other at interesting points. And we're back at an intersection. So let's start there. So we're both kind of now involved in agentic commerce. How about that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, and Scott, like, it's first of all fascinating to see the leadership role you have played in commerce. And I started my career in retail and commerce when I was working for I2 Technologies it was 2000. So kind of really traditional retail, supply chain, then digital commerce at Google, and then starting my own company focusing on modern point of sale and unified commerce, and now agentic commerce. So it's kind of just nice to see the full circle. And it's interesting, a lot of the core tenets of how do you deliver a delightful consumer experience, those haven't changed.
I'm really excited by the agentic world, because, and I don't know if you share this, but I feel like it's going to accelerate everything. And I think it's going to be kind of there's some, you guys have talked about some of the new experiences you're delivering. I don't know how many of those are powered by agents, and we'll get into that. But I think it's just going to create an elevated experience for consumers. And that's, I feel like, back in those 7 days, it was like we were going 30-40% above retail. And now we've kind of come in line with retail. And I'd love to see us like accelerate back. By us, I mean the digital cohort versus the store. And I know in your world, they're all unified and harmonious, but I I'm a digital person, less so than the store person. So I do think it's going to accelerate things. Do you think that's what's going to happen?
I think it will. And I think to me, like, there's kind of two lenses to look at it, right? One is every time there's a new innovation, you reduce the friction, right? So every time you reduce friction in commerce, the overall pie for commerce becomes bigger, right? And to me, that's like fascinating to see like what percentage of GDP. I mean, already the retail is one of the biggest vertical, right? And however you look at the numbers, whether it's 15% or more, but it's a massive part of GDP. And the more you take the friction away, the pie of commerce increases, and yes, digital will continue to increase. In store is phenomenal. Stores are back now. Like consumers really are back in the stores, but also there are areas where commerce did not flourish before, right? And agentic potentially allows us to go there, right? And a classic example is like publishing websites, right? We have talked a long time, said, okay, how do you go from simple ad formats to transactional ads, which are fully conversational and you can just make a purchase right there when you're reading an article about outdoor living and you loved a tent and you can just buy it, right? And I feel like that's where you would see the overall pie just increase for commerce.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we're kind of starting it then, the story. Let's go through the Wayback Machine or the time travel hot tub, whichever one you prefer. And then, as I was kind of doing research, I've always just kind of naturally gotten along with you, and I realized why now. I saw that you got a computer engineering degree as an undergrad, so we share that in common. Here in the States, we had EECE, so I had to take a couple electronics classes, and I realized that is not for me. Computer engineering all the way. How did you know? Were you always in a technical family? Like what put you on this?
Oh, this journey. I think it's combination. Honestly, it took me a bit to fully realize what I wanted to do. Um, I I definitely was fascinated with the work that was going on in computer engineering. And yeah, I'm like you. I'm not a hardware guy. It's actually very hard. Even simple things at my home, if I were to fix, it's actually challenging for me. So I'm very software logical guy, and that helps me to think through math, kind of being really the foundation of all the algorithms and equations. And especially with Gen AI, you really see the power of math coming into it. So that's what kind of really got me excited. But also like throughout my career, and it's so like you, I like you have such a strong acumen on consumers, and I think the consumer psychology and human psychology more broadly is so foundational no matter what products you build, and it really makes you a better technologist. And a lot of times I tell my team that be a shopper before you're being a coder or a product manager.
It's kind, Elon always talks about first principles and stuff, and when you're building rockets, physics is your first principle. We're fortunate that we can live outside. I mean, we live in the world of physics, but but in our day jobs, we're kind of outside of that. And basically, our first principle or physics is consumer behavior. Like everything we do in our world has to end at a consumer buying something, and you kind of have to walk backwards from that. So that's good advice. So you mentioned I2, so that was like one of the first early gigs that you got. What was I2, and what was that? There was an I2 that did cybersecurity. Is this a different one?
No, this is a different. This was all supply chain. So this is like pre machine learning, pre everything. But there's some really phenomenal work I2 did back in the days, and very modern and innovative company. And a lot of the alumni I see, they have done extremely well, over the years. But yeah, primary focus was really factory planning, supply chain, like all the core prediction and planning models around moving goods.
Yeah, kind of like a Manhattan Associates today kind of a thing, or
Um, Different. Manhattan, like, yeah, more around warehouse management. This was truly around predictive planning, right? So you're doing forecasting, you're like really helping like move the goods around a factory, and how do you do procurement and how do you do planning around it?
Gotcha. And then you went to BEA.
I went to BA. In fact, I was with somebody just now at a meeting, and I met this old friend after 22, 23 years. Yeah, BA was amazing, WebLogic, and those were the Java days. And Java is still one of my favorite programming languages.
Yeah. And then tell us, how did you get from there to Google?
I was at BA during the early days, and it was fascinating. And at the tail end of my career, I was there a little over 5 years actually. Google was Google was still like early days. Like when I joined Google, I think we were 4,000 employees, so not like 20 employees, but not also like 100,000 employees. It was still like, smaller company. And then I had a friend of mine, he had joined, and he's like, you should just come and talk to a few people here. And I was very happy with BA. I had a great relationship with the team there and the founders there, Bill Coleman and Alfred Chong. They were amazing founders. So it was like a family, and the Google appeal really was pretty high, and just things worked out. So it was more like, how sometimes things just come in your path, and it's fascinating how your paths change.
So you didn't have to do the wacky interview and all that stuff. You kind of had a more of an industry connection of some kind.
No, the interview process was still pretty rigorous, Scott. It was.
I'm not saying you didn't pass the hard,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
right out of school they do all this kind of kind of crazy stuff. Like, yeah,
Back in the days, like, so this is like, so when did I joined Google like early 2006. So I was interviewing with them like tail end of 2020, 2005. And it was like, pretty long. Like they had like,
you always meet like 15 people on a Google interview. It's nuts.
yeah, I think they were really like when I was there, then, after I was there for all these years. Yeah, back in the days, I think there were 8 people who interviewed me. And, it was a pretty prolonged process, like end to end between hello till the day I showed up at Google campus. I think it was like 3.5 months.
Did you go on an interview where you're on that bike that they travel around on?
I didn't try the bike. I did had lunch. I did enjoy the lunch. One of the interviews was lunch at this Charlie's Cafe. So back in the days, there was only one cafe. I mean, obviously now Google, I think they have 40 cafes the campus. But these were, by the way, Scott, these were the original Silicon Graphics buildings, building
Yeah,
40, 41,
before the
40.
Plex. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and those, like the numbers, they kept it same. So there were only 4 buildings back in the days, right? The campus was still like pretty much those, and there was one cafe, Charlie's Cafe, named after the first chef Charlie. And during one of my interviews, yeah, I had lunch at Charlie's Cafe, and it was a great experience.
Do you have any? So there you did. I think you did enterprise search, which was where you guys. It was an appliance, right? Wasn't there a hardware component? Am I remembering that right? It's very interesting for Google.
Yeah, and I quickly moved that entire business to cloud, and that's where kind of I started in retail, right? So, kind of me with such a strong background in retail, I saw a huge potential with e-commerce. So, I launched this product. It was called Google Commerce Search. It was the first hosted e-commerce search from Google, fully hosted. And I had a lot of customers. I think I partnered with Birkenstock and several brands actually which went live. And my biggest innovation back in those days when I launched this product, I think it was 2007, was search as you type. So that was a big deal back then. Like if you can build a search engine where you're just typing in and the PLP page is just dynamically loading before even you have finished the keyword. And so we launched the search as you type, and we worked with Brooks Brothers, we worked with Birkenstock, we worked with several brands, L'Occitane, to power their e-commerce search experience. And that's where I kind of went from enterprise division to fully kind of on the shopping side of Google, and that's where you and I met.
Yeah, but enterprise was like this hardware appliance, and it was very horizontal, right? Like a news org could have it, a fintech, any company could have it. Could just power your search engine, but it had this appliance. So you took it, got rid of the hardware, which is obvious the way it was going, and then you like made it super vertical. Did you have filtered nav back in the day, or you guys didn't really need it because the search was so good?
No, no, no. I mean, faceted search, or faceted search was foundational even back in those days. I actually launched two products. So there was Google Commerce Search, whose focus was e-commerce, so highly structured metadata. And then another product I launched, which was also a hosted product called Google Site Search, which was the horizontal product to power any news website, any .com. Like we were powering Cisco. Actually, even Nvidia was my customer. I still remember going to Nvidia at their Santa Clara office in 2007.
Should
Uh,
have bought stock. Load up on stock.
yeah, back in the days when they were doing primarily graphics cards, they were actually one of my customers back in the days. So I remember. But anyway, so we had two different products because, and I think people still like. I mean, you understand this, Scott. Like people sometimes mix search, and I think search has three flavors. There's like the highly, unstructured web pages, right? And there is search for that. Then there is the e-commerce search, and then there's the truly enterprise search, which is security and obviously all this is merging and there's interesting technologies. But back then my focus was to have these two as very distinct products, commerce search versus site search.
Then you got involved in Froogle, the artist previously known as Froogle.
I still call it Froogle when I meet people. I was like, you guys remember Froogle? And do you remember Google Base?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Froogle was built on
I
Google.
remember the Froogle thing had like a 6 zeros in it or something, or O's. It had like a lot. It was like Froogle. It was really cute.
Yeah, the logo and the
Yeah, very
branding was.
whimsical back in the day. It was fun.
Yeah, I got involved in 2007. Then, as I was doing this Google Commerce search, I kind of started working with the team who was building the Froogle, and we kind of hit an interesting juncture where this product was slowly starting to move from being a hobby and a fun project to like a multi-billion-dollar commercial project. And that the transition was fascinating. Back then, like it's kind of a similar wave that we are seeing with agentic AI right now, right? Like everybody wants to be part of the commerce that will happen on ChatGPT perplexity. Back in the days, you will remember we had comparison shopping engines, right? Become.com. I'm trying to recall. Find my like there were few comparison shopping engine back in the days, and when Google
My
launched.
Simon, that's a good one. Oldie
Yeah,
but a
yeah,
goodie.
that's right. No, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, yeah. And so when Google launched, everybody there were a few people who didn't wanted to participate on Google Shopping too, and I won't name them here, but there's some few large ones who were like a little bit worried that what's Google doing, and they stood out of that initial kind of participation. But majority of the other brands were really motivated to participate on Google, and the big challenge, which is your company played a huge role, was how do we reduce the technical barrier for somebody to really give us their entire product catalog. And that's where your company played a huge role. And I kind of, worked on the initial Google Shopping spec. By the way, I spoke to a lot of.
So you're to blame for for the Google Shopping feed spec. In a way, you created a wild opportunity for my new company, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you, having such a minimum number of required fields, which has made it. Now everyone has a lot to catch up on with the new feed spec from ChatGPT. Did you see the new feed spec and you're like, oh my god, people are gonna have a really hard time getting there from the old the G Shop spec.
Yeah, and they borrowed also a lot of things, like even like like the core tenets of like how we thought about modeling variance, how we thought about really understanding the taxonomy, and also respecting that there's not going to be one canonical taxonomy. There's always going to be variances. So and that was the first machine learning project we did, was how do you take like all these products you're getting catalogs across different companies, and how do you harmonize their taxonomies so that when somebody's searching for
This is a very hard problem.
genes. Yeah, it's a huge problem, right? Like, and
I call it the canonicalization. We call the whole thing canonicalization. So taking all these data feeds and mapping them into this thing is hard.
it's a really hard problem. And so we did a lot of work. Actually, we had an amazing team there in Pittsburgh, and we had uh, one of our executives. He was he's very well renowned. and he was at CMU, and Andrew Moore, and he and his team did some phenomenal work back there to really canonicalize the product catalogs, and then it took off. Like I remember, like we had like less than few hundred merchants. By the time I left the shopping team, we were, I think it was like, if not a million, definitely high end of several 100,000 merchants. And I'm sure your company played a huge role in, really helping us to reach that scale.
So then where'd you go after Google Shopping?
So I left Google in 2013 to start my own company, PredictSpring.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you've been working for big companies all this time. What gave you the impetus to start your own company? Did you just have a great idea? You had a co-founder? Like what was the light bulb moment?
Yeah, and honestly, the biggest one was the drive to be an entrepreneur. It was less about the idea. It was really, and then I'm not just saying because you and I are here together, but I'm always inspired by entrepreneurs. I saw you build your company, and I saw you in action, and I saw your drive. And you may not remember, I came to one of your conferences, and yeah, Catalyst. That's right. I think it was 2009 or something. I came and presented in one of your conferences back then. So I was always inspired, and there were a couple other founders who I came close to, and obviously we're lucky. Like I had seen several founders. So like I too, I saw Sanjeev Sidhu in action. I saw Bill Coleman and Alfred in action at BA, and then Larry and Sergey in action at. And those guys are like gods. So you cannot even compare yourself. So like meeting other founders and seeing them build companies from scratch was very inspiring, and I felt the moment was right to take the risk. It was a big risk, and I always say that if I knew how hard it would be, I would have never left Google. But now that knowing how rewarding it was, not from a money point of view, but just from an accomplishment and just like sense of building something, the only question is why it took me so long to take this kind of you have to jump. And anyways, to answer your question, it was really the drive to be an entrepreneur. And I had two or three ideas actually, and I then honed on the one idea, and then I had to pivot actually, which by the way happens in majority of the companies. You refine your idea, you pivot. Um, but literally, I left Google. I think it was like Thursday. Took a flight, and I planned that I'll start the company. Took a flight, spent a weekend at South by Southwest in Austin. And actually, that year, 2013, so this is 12 years ago, Elon Musk was doing the keynote.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. That's inspirational.
Yeah, and by this time, I'd already made up the mind that I'm leaving Google, obviously starting a company.
But you hear him, you're like, I'm not aiming high enough.
Oh no, no, those guys are the
I don't know what
gods.
he talked about, but that's like always what I'm left with. I'm like, I gotta aim higher. This is crazy.
And then so I spent the weekend there, and then I came back Monday, and then worked with one of the law firms here in Silicon Valley, and then we incorporated the company Tuesday morning. So it was literally I had like less than a weekend break, and then but I had not done any work or any homework, so I think, but still I did the right thing. So kind of I went from like like just like a jump from the cliff, and no, not much prep, not much homework, nothing. I kind of started from scratch, started the company in my garage. I put my own money in the company. The first check was my money. I didn't take salary for 3 years. So it ended up being, in some ways, you can say that I was highly unplanned, which now as I've matured, I've like, perhaps that was crazy. But on the other side, I think entrepreneurs are crazy. Like you cannot go and get an MBA degree on entrepreneurship. Like you sometimes have to just cut the cord and just do it.
Yeah. The analytics part of your MBA actually is like kind of counterproductive to being an entrepreneur a lot of times because you can analyze a market. And whenever I meet a lot of MBAs that want to do this, they spend all their time on pricing and stuff. I'm like, guys, just like pricing will come later. Like you'll figure that out. Go create something that there's demand for, and then you can worry about. They're like, yeah, but what if I don't price it right? I'm like, you're not going to. Like, I can guarantee you, you can do all your analysis and you're gonna be wrong. So just like start it wrong.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Like monetization will always follow, and you will figure it out, or you'll hire some amazing people to figure it out if you have a great product.
The customers will kind of tell you too. They're pretty good at that. So you decided to do, you call it unified point of sale. So, in my mind, and I don't know much about PredictSpring, so I'm kind of green on this. So I'm imagining software as a service, point of sale, hosted. So, and then what's fun about point of sale is you suddenly have to interface with like printers and cash drawers and all that stuff. But then you also have like a store to interface with. So you got one leg in the digital world and one in the analog. What was that? But I guess you had a little bit exposure to that from the supply chain side. So
Yeah, it was, like you always connect all the dots that you learned in your life, right? As you're doing, the next thing you do is accumulation of all the hard work and pattern analysis and the domain knowledge you build up over the years, right? And so it was really connecting the dots. And initially, so I did pivot just to kind of give you full story there. So when I started PredictSpring, my focus was trying to build the best mobile commerce platform. Because back in the days, 2013, mobile was still a hard problem. The conversion rates on mobile were still lower, even though iPhone had launched in 2007. And so I was trying to build a no code platform to build both mobile apps and mobile web. That was the focus of the company. And over a period of time, and it took me a little longer actually to pivot, I realized that that standalone business became a feature of platforms. It didn't make sense to just have a standalone business. Also, like the adoption of mobile apps kind of changed. Like the curve kept changing, right? It wasn't like for everybody. So it was there for the really large head merchants. The top 20% of the brands and retailers saw the value of having a native mobile app. Others, the friction of getting consumers to download the app was pretty high. And so all these observations kind of made me think harder with discussing with my board and everyone that we should pivot. We're doing very well financially, so it wasn't a question of this is the thing I tell remind everyone, including myself, is that startups don't fail, they simply run out of money. Right. And so luckily, like I was like fiscally very conservative and I was running the company on money side, so that wasn't an issue. But I knew that this is not a massive TAM, right? And one lesson I learned is that while your drive and passion is foundational as a founder, but if your TAM is not big enough, uh, it's hard to build massive companies. You have to take a step back and make sure the TAM is big enough. And I realized the TAM was not big enough, so I took a step back and I was like, okay, what's the most adjacent market to go after, so I can capitalize on all the work that has already gone in this company, right? So we don't start from scratch again. And I looked at the point of sale space. It wasn't There was no innovation for last 20 years. Was the only company which had done a phenomenal work, but they were not focusing on retail. They were doing long tail and they were doing very well in that. And so I took the mobile focused product, which was already digital first. So the omni-channel part, the customer 360, all was already there because we were building the mobile loyalty apps and everything. And then I pivoted to a point of sale, which was the best decision because our POS was the only POS which was customer centric, had the best mobile experience, and was omni-channel.
yeah, and Shopify didn't get into point of sale. They acquired that right later, like 2018, 2019. Like it's pretty new.
Yeah, it's relatively, yeah, and we compete with them, Shopify, as you know. But like a lot of the Shopify customers are still using and will continue to use PredictSpring or now Salesforce POS. So our POS product is definitely a lot more mature. It's deployed in 30 countries. We work with some of the biggest brands from Crate and Barrel, Under Armour, some of the
It could
largest.
probably handle multi-store, and the old one was like, I think the Shopify one's just like a guy in an ice cream cart. It's kind of how it started. It matured into more mature single store, maybe like two, but not beyond regional for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and we are definitely a lot more mainstream and enterprise. But yeah, anyways, that was kind of the story behind PredictSpring.
There was this guy in his last name, David. His last name was his company. It was weird. He had website and point of sale. Do you remember this? It'll come to me. uh, yeah. All right. I think Oracle bought that one, and then before they bought ATG, they bought this other one. And they kind of like tried to combine them. It was kind of a mess. But anyway,
Micros? You're not talking Micros. Micros was a big acquisition. Oracle bought for like 10 billion or something. And we still compete with micros, by the way. That
It was David something, and the company was his last name.
I know obviously, I remember ATG very well, and I remember all the acquisition, Endeca, ATG. Uh, yeah, it's definitely cross paths with all these guys.
Through that journey, so that journey went from 2013 to 2024. So that's about right? Like 11 years is kind of like that's the other thing they don't tell you when you watch movies like The Social Network, that you're signing up for a 10 to 15-year-old journey. In my case, Channelvisor was like a 21-year-old journey, to the kind of the ultimate endpoint. And I guess you're still involved, so you're still on the journey, but you had a big milestone there. You raised 32 million. I kind of did a little research on that, so that was good. So you must have done. Did you do like an A and a B, and you didn't get to C? Is that, or did you get to C?
We did a seed, A, and a B. That's right.
How did you get to the point where you decided? Did someone inbound to you? And I don't want to know any specifics, but just like it's always interesting to me. Like, did you just kind of you and the board decided it's time for us to kind of like run a process, or was there just kind of people started to realize that this kind of what in my world we always called it omni-channel, and then now they call it harmonized, and then you had unified. But this you're kind of early in this concept. The first retailer I heard talk about this was a Nordstrom, where they're like, the customer's going to come wherever they want, and we just need to make sure, if she comes to us in a store or online, we need to know that she loves red shoes, or she likes flats, or whatever it is. And I just thought that customer centricity really appealed to me, and it seems like you had kind of like read the tea leaves on that pretty early, and it took a little while for the market to catch up.
Yeah, and by the way, I used to use this example back in the days, and I would still use it today. It's like the best store experience is the minimalism of an Apple store meets the hospitality and the customer service centric experience of a Nordstrom. And that marriage, if you can build a platform where technology is there to help associates, right? At the end of the day, you are there for a human help, and technology is there to really enable that human, right? The associates to be more effective and productive. In fact, we this is before joining Salesforce and Agentforce. We actually built a voice-enable, system in our POS. So you can say, instead of like going through multiple clicks and navigation, you can simply say, "Show me Stacy's profile," and it understands that you are trying to look up customers' profile, and it will bring like the entire customer 360. So it was always key to it. On your previous question on Salesforce acquisition and was yeah, so like just like walking back to the comments you made, I agree with you. Even when I left Google, I thought this is a 2 year movie, ended up being 11 and a half years, right? And so people like like it's like the entrepreneurship looks very glamorous and amazing, and which it is beautiful, but most people don't realize that this is a very giving role. Like you need to first of all do it for the right reasons, and it's it's a very giving role on how you think about your customers, your team, your investors, and you're serving all these three constituents every day. And so when I looked at 11 and a half years, here's the other philosophy I have, which I might correct or improvise at some point, but so far my philosophy has been that companies are not sold, companies are bought, right? So in our case, yeah, I mean
Well,
Salesforce
the
approached.
best outcome is when they're bought. When they're sold, it's usually not as good an outcome. Yeah.
That's true. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. So yeah, Salesforce approached us, and we were great partners with Salesforce, so it was very complimentary, and it was serving our customers. Right, we are able to provide a better solution to our joint customers. Right, we are able to give better value. So it all made sense. But also, like as I said, I was serving all three constituents, which is my investors, my team, and my customers. And I looked at all three of them and I felt it was the right answer.
Salesforce is a great home. They have a long history of taking these things and nurturing them, and not just kind of like not integrating them, or just like So they seem to have made it a core part of their DNA to be able to do this.
Yeah. So it was kind of, those kind of factors led to the eventual accumulation of the acquisition. The acquisition closed. So we signed the acquisition in August and we closed it in September.
Yeah. Was that a good outcome for you and the investors, everybody? Are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
happy?
no, it
Yeah,
was
good,
good.
good.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
we're happy.
Yeah. You're still working though.
I love. I mean, you're working, Scott. Like you took the company public. I highly admire you, and I think I'm like, I think we all are like, I want to work till the last day, but I also have a different like style of working. So I'll tell you, like, uh, you know, for me, like thinking is working, right? So like whether it's a weekend or whether it's like an evening or anytime, I'm thinking, right? Like my head is like on the job. But there are areas where I try to balance, right? Like I like, for example, a little bit time to myself in the mornings, right? Like it helps me ground my day. Also, like health wise, like I have this chronic backache, so I have to like just make sure like I'm doing some exercise in the morning. And so like there are some things, like even when I ran the company, unless there was something important, which I totally respect, or there was something urgent, I like to at least like start my meetings if possible, like at a slightly reasonable time in the morning. So that's kind of how I think about it, is that if you're running a long game and if you want to work till literally last day of your life, you need to find out like what drives you so that the work doesn't feel like work.
Jeff Bezos calls it his putter time. He likes to putter in the morning. Kind of like just work on what he's going to work on or do whatever he's going to do. Um, okay, so you did the deal with Salesforce, and then during that process, did you get to meet Benioff and that kind of thing, or were you dealing with more like a corp dev team, or did they bring him in to seal the deal? Seems like he'd be the closer.
I did meet Mark at the. I'm trying to recall before or after we signed it. Before we closed the deal, definitely. But I did meet Mark. But the deal was, obviously, it's a combination of our M&A team here as well as the executive leadership team, right? Because eventually this is part of the product team, right? So the product team is involved in all M&A.
Seems like once you're signed, then you can start thinking about integration and not doing anything, but then just kind of like, and that's like a little bit of a like, let's seriously date. We're kind of committed to each other as we work out the details, kind of thing.
Yeah, we didn't talk integration until, actually, honestly, till we closed the deal. But as part of due diligence, product team is involved, right? Because the product team has to see the fit on the product and make the right decision. But yeah, just talking about Mark, I've gotten to know Mark much better now in the last.
Does he always wear really cool shoes? Whenever he's at Dreamforce, he has like these really neat shoes.
Mark loves shopping, right? Mark loves retail. When obviously, Salesforce, we have many
It's
verticals.
a blessing and a curse to be the head of shopping at a place where a guy likes to shop.
uh, Mark is like, I honestly, he inspires me so much. Like, first of all, founding the company in the late '90s, you have the same energy with Mark. Scott, you meet Mark, he's supremely tuned in. Like a simple message to him with like just like 2 lines context, not like a 3-page document. He gets it, right? And he's able to help you. He's able to make a decision on it. That's how he is tuned in with every single business, right? So we have different businesses: marketing, commerce, Slack, MuleSoft, like we Agentforce, Data Cloud, right? So obviously, I'm running the commerce business for Salesforce, but he's equally tuned in with all of these businesses, and he's just a good human. Like, it's just he leads with a high degree of empathy. He obviously challenges you, right? Like, he has a high bar. He's building a performance culture, but the fact that he's so responsive and so empathetic is truly a leader who leads by inspiration. And for me, like, that just gives me such a good energy.
From the outside, it looks like they acquired a point of sale system and then suddenly you were running everything. Like I'm sure that's not how it worked, but was that part of the negotiation, or did you just kind of like work your way? Yeah, was there like a? It was in a year, so something very fast had to happen in there.
No, honestly, there was nothing pre-planned, right? So Salesforce acquired PredictSpring September, and my first focus, honestly, the day I closed the deal, yeah, I mean, I called all my customers even when I signed, because when you sign the deal, you have to announce it, and then you have to wait for all the regulatory approvals, so you can't do any integration, or there's no work that happens in that time frame. But on the day you sign, we do put a blog post out. So the news is public that Salesforce has signed a definite agreement to acquire PredictSpring pending regulatory closures. And so first thing I did is, obviously, after telling my team, I called every single customer, right? to ensure them that I'm here for them, which is, by the way, true. It's now 15 months. I'm here for them because their first concern was like, and I said, look, it's a great company. Salesforce take cares of customers, and they absolutely believe in the product. So my first focus going into Salesforce was just making sure that PredictSpring, my team, product, customer just lands well, right? Because it's a big company, and we had tremendous support, and that's what I did for first, you know, 3 or 4 months. And then there were a couple. It just happened. This is no pre-planning, nothing. um, Things happen, and it made sense to bring all products which were commerce related. So we had B2C commerce, B2B commerce, order management, point of sale, which I was anyways running, and then we are building Agentforce for retail, and we should talk a little bit about it on that, because it's one of my key focus areas. And actually, I've gone back to being like a PM for that because I'm so excited about it. And then we had payments, Salesforce payments. So we had like, call it six or so products, and they were a little bit distributed, and it made sense to bring all of them together. And so I think I took on this official role. It was like around late February. Mark called me and he said, Nitin, uh, we want to really rethink agentic commerce and unified commerce. And that's like, it's for me, it was the biggest honor when you get that call. And, I'm like an all in guy. So, like, I don't pace myself. It's all about just go and do all in. And so the passion that I had in this space, it kind of made sense to bring all these products under one team and really unify it. So that was kind of the events that led to this group.
And you don't really toot your own horn, but a product leader that can kind of like see across it all, right? Because it's hard to be the PM of something or like be the person of something, but then also able to kind of come out of that and see the bigger field. So I think your prior Google experience allowed you to kind of like be an entrepreneur and a bigger company PM, allowed you kind of both. As a founder, you have to be myopic, and then you were also had the wide lens as well. So you're the obvious choice in my. I'm a obviously biased. I wasn't there, but it's like if someone's going to run all this, it's Nitin. So yeah. You have to have like the history too. You can't. This industry, there's many failures that happen for startups that bring in CEOs from or leaders of whatever degree from outside of it. Like you couldn't just bring in a pure CRM SaaS person or something like that, because this industry has details that are very hard for people to pick up quickly, or the learning curve is substantial.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%, Scott. It takes time, and you get then really good at pattern analysis. Otherwise, your intuition, which is basically pattern analysis, right? Like you could be off by a big margin, if your intuition and pattern analysis is not right here. So
Yeah. And then while we were chatting, I did look this up, and it was Micros. And the thing that messed with my head all the time was the guy's name was David Merchant. I'm like, your name's Merchant? And he's always like, no, it's Merchant. And I'm like, okay, it's Merchant. It's spelled Merchant. So it always blew my mind that this guy, David Merchant, was doing point of sale software. Um, so let's talk about agents. So at Dreamforce, you guys announced that you are rolling out support for the ChatGPT Instant Checkout and ACP. Tell us about that. Where are we to the extent? Give us an update. Anything you can share, people. I'm sure we're recording this something like less than 20 days from Black Friday, so I'm sure you're getting some phone calls and people asking what's going on.
yeah, so we announced the partnership at Dreamforce. So just a few weeks ago. It's a new protocol. Stripe and OpenAI have co-authored it. It's an open protocol, so anybody can implement it. We are working very closely with both of them. It will really enable a full transactional experience on ChatGPT. Obviously, discovery is happening even right now. You can go and ask question to ChatGPT or any Gemini or Claude or Perplexity, right? Like I'm looking for sneakers, or I'm looking for dark jeans, or I'm looking for a watch. And so the discovery is already there, and that traffic, the referral traffic, customers are already starting to see, right, coming from the agentic. But the thing about the ACP is like it completes the full checkout funnel, right? So not only you're able to do discovery, but also checkout. we're working with them. There are few things like just both parties are working together. As you know, like discovery, I wouldn't say it's a simpler problem, but it's a, it's it's much simpler than doing the full checkout. I mean, even at Google we tried, I don't know, 6 times doing a buy on Google, right? And it was hard. I mean, I was right there, right? It was hard. And just setting expectations, like we are amazingly excited. And but I think these things, when you try to do checkout in a syndicated way, it's much harder, right? The referral traffic moving to syndicated way is natural. That's happening even right now, and every brand is investing. And I know your company is doing great things. The checkout will take a little bit, kind of till all the machinery comes in. And when we think about agentic, we think about agentic from three different lenses. The first lens we think about agentic is owned and operated properties. This is your website, your mobile app, your stores. So even your associates need agentic experience, and your call center. And so that is our phase one. That's already live in production. We have customers like Pandora, Williams Sonoma on the retail side already using our agentic experience on owned and operated properties.
Yeah, at Demand Force, you had some really good. The Pandora people were talking about how it's made some pretty dramatic savings for them having the on site service agent. I can't remember. I think it did both discovery and it could do some service stuff.
It
So
does
that
both,
was
yes.
yeah. So that was a that was a very powerful. It's always good to have a brand like that stand up, and it's better to have them sell for you than than you sell when they talk about how it's impacting their business. It was a good one.
And they both, Alexander, who's the CEO, and David Wansley, who's the president, they both are strong visionaries. They really want to rethink the experience, the unified experience, the digital experience. So it was just great working with them. They pushed the envelope with us. Um, so anyways, going back to, like, when we think about agentic, we think three form factors. There's owned and operated properties that's already live in production. People are using our technology, Agentforce for retail. Then there is syndicated commerce. On syndicated commerce, discovery is already happening. Checkout, is under development as we speak, right? The spec is out there. We are working with OpenAI as well as our partners to get that live. And obviously Claude, Gemini, like all of them will fast, like, they will have their own versions. Like some of them will adopt ACP, some of them may create their own version, but it's going to happen. Syndicated commerce on agent will happen. The third thing is syndicated commerce on messaging channels, WhatsApp, SMS, right? So as messaging becomes conversational instead of one way, right? Commerce is a natural place to do. When you get a text message from your favorite brand about a new product or a promotion or anything, you should be able to buy it right there. So we are investing in all three legs of this agentic story.
Do you think the messaging companies will have checkouts there, or it'll be up to the retailer and their technology partner to provide that piece?
It might be both eventually. Right now, we are investing in it. So once you are authenticated, you can give a prompt and say, "Yeah, let's go ahead and purchase this pair of shoes" through a text message. It's like, you know, basically taking a prompt and then completing a transaction on their behalf.
Yeah. Well, they've had this in China forever, right? We've always said it was coming, but it kind of took, oddly enough, it took ChatGPT to kind of like get bridge the gap and for people to kind of like see that could be a way to do things. Not consumers, not obviously we could just we've I think Zuck's tried it. You guys tried it like 6 times. I think they've tried it 6 times and at Facebook, and they couldn't get it to take because we all saw it happening in China. We're like, why is this not working here? And now it kind of finally is. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, the conversational commerce, I agree. Like if everything moves to conversation, the consumer expectation goes up because they're like, well, why can't I just do it in couple prompts instead of 10 clicks, right? And especially on a mobile device, it's so much easier to send a SMS or WhatsApp than clicking on multiple web pages.
Yeah, and if you buy something, it's kind of like ordering breakfast. Like once you know what you want, you'd be like, all right, scrambled bacon, wheat toast. So you could you could imagine you get to this shorthand where the first one's like a four, kind of a four threads or whatever, four turns, and then the next one you're just like, here's men's this size, shoe this size, blue, and you're ready to go. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. And some of this is where, like, to me, the true definition of agentic commerce is full automation, right? And the couple use cases which we see one is inventory replenishment, right? And in stores, your agent, your replenishment agent should just do the job. It knows the inventory levels, it knows the order volume, it knows the historical trend analysis. It should just place the replenishment order for you every Friday or every Sunday night. Like it should be just fully automated. Like you need very little human intervention. So that's an example of a truly agentic system. Similarly, like things like grocery, like we have talked a lot about this in the past, but like grocery can be fully agentic because you generally know what you want, and maybe you do one last review. So like it's kind of like the human is like the agent is doing 95% of the legwork for you. You do a quick eyeball, they're like, yep, you put the milk there for me, eggs, bread, blah blah blah, I like this kind of a sourdough. And you just quickly look at it and you just give a prompt saying, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, or I don't do whole milk. I prefer skim. So some little nuance. But what's nice is with the memory these systems have today, you don't have to tell it every time. I just feel like at Instacart, not to pick on them, but kind of 1.0, you're just like constantly having to restate your preference, and it's exhausting. Now you just state it once, you're like, oh my god, why has this not happened in the last 20 years?
Same thing with talking about that, Scott, like context. And as the context windows get bigger and are getting bigger, we are able to do much better, right? Because to really do a better agentic thing, you need same thing with airlines, right? Like every time you book a flight, you have to place your meal order. Well, just let the user tell you, like, are they a vegetarian? Are they a vegan? Do they have any other dietary constraints? That should be right there in their profile. And you by default select a meal for them so that if I forgot to select a meal and then I'm in airline and they always run out of the meals that you want. Like it's a classic. This is like not a one-off problem. It's an everyday problem that can be simply solved by just having the right user profile and context.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour. I want to make sure you're a busy guy. I don't want to jam you up because you were so generous with your time. Do you need to go? We could wrap up
I think yeah,
fast.
we should have. I know it's late for you. First of all, you have taken
All
an
right.
evening call, which I'm very
Oh,
thankful.
my evening's getting started. So you
Yeah.
know how it is. um, any last thoughts you want to, so this has been super helpful. So it's been great to hear your career. And, I hadn't heard the PredictSpring part, so I appreciate you sharing that. And then your journey so far at Salesforce. I guess, the one question I'll wrap up with is how important is the commerce to the company and, Marc Benioff?
Very, very important, right? I mean, the fact is, first of all, as I said, Mark is highly tuned in, and he loves retail as a vertical. But also, equally importantly, we have some of the biggest customers. Like we power L'Oreal, we power Birkenstock. We work with, as I said, we just went live with all the Crate and Barrel stores. So if you go this holiday season to any Crate and Barrel store and you see the point of sale, that's us. So we have some of these most amazing brands that we use every day, and the focus we created on agentic commerce has been phenomenal this year. So I think we are like in that mode, like where we feel like we not only have an amazing portfolio of products in commerce, but we are also like in that day one mentality of reinventing agentic commerce here.
It's exciting, and stay tuned. I'll have to have you on in like another year, and maybe you'll be running some other big chunk of something. So it'll be fun to watch what you do in the next year, and then the various innovations you guys bring out. If I know you're not. Well, if people want to follow, so Salesforce has tons of resources on this. We had Kayla on earlier, and you guys are we're heading into the Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You guys will publish a lot there. That's not your bailiwick, but I know you occasionally put some little nuggets on LinkedIn. Is that kind of the best place for people to follow you, or are you an avid Twitter/Xer?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm definitely lot. I'm a much better publisher on LinkedIn and a much better consumer of information on X. So that's kind of my. So if you want to see my postings, yes, you'll definitely follow me on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Nitin Mangtani, Salesforce, and yeah, please. I try to publish at least once a week. A lot of times it's nothing to do with product. It's more just industry insights or my just thoughts on leadership or entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, and good luck have a knock on wood, have a very strong holiday season. So
Scott. Great meeting you as well. And thank you again for having me on your podcast.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgentic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.